السلام يا جماعة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله. نرحب فيكم يا جماعة. Welcome everyone. I thought that you did not get any yet. So today we are going to take a new topic and nothing to do with HISIS. Okay. So the new topic that you're going to be taking is the ISO 9001-2015. Just to have an overall view of what is left in our course. So what's left in our course is this ISO 9001-2015. It's pretty lengthy, but it's not difficult. It's not difficult at all, but it's pretty lengthy because it has a lot of standards. And then we are going to continue also with the ISO with another sub details. I mean, these details are supportive details. I may not explain from the PowerPoint presentation. We will see. I may explain from another document, which is this document here. It's a very similar document, but this document is represented as a checklist to make sure if the organization is satisfying the ISO standards. So what is written here is the ISO standards, and this is what you're going to study. We are going to study the ISO standards. It's difficult to study ISO standards in details for every part because that is a lead auditor course. To become a lead auditor for ISO 9001, and that is like a 3-day course which only concentrates on these details. And we are talking about lead auditor course. That means someone who already knows what is ISO and what are the details of ISO and what is the context of organization, and then he's learning how to use these details here. So that is ISO. That is the part that is left. The second part which is left is something called reliability engineering. And this is to do with something like if you have 5 valves, for example, and you look at the efficiency or the reliability of every valve, and then you want to see the reliability of the system. How do you look at the reliability of the system? It's something simple. What is in series, you multiply, and what is in parallel, you divide. There is a certain equation that you need to do your calculation with. So that is the other part, which is straightforward. The third part is related to the fault mode and effect analysis. I don't like this picture, Yani, and this is what it's trying to say here. Like, Yani, when you try to solve things, Yani, you don't go to those this nonsense stuff. You need to go through a certain step, and those steps we call them the fault mode effect analysis. Simply, it is a table that we need to fill in. So this is the fault mode effect. It is a table that we need to fill in. It's as simple as that. So that is the last part of the course. Last part of the course. So that is what is left within the course is ISO, reliability engineering, and fault mode effect analysis. Now, going back to ISO, like I have 2 documents to explain in ISO. It's ISO 3 and ISO 4. I'm going to put them in a separate document, all what is left from the course, or actually all the course materials, not the supporting materials, only the material that we used in explaining. I'm going to put them in one folder. I think it makes them easier for you to refer back to. Yes, so that is ISO. So let's start with ISO. ISO 9001-2015. Now you look at first what is ISO. ISO is the International Standards Organization or of organization, something like that. So it puts international standards. So what do we mean by international standards? What is that organization? It had started long time back, but the idea is that, for example, if you use your socket for electricity, what do you do for your socket electricity? You have a standard port where you put your socket. Why is this a standard? Because if it was not a standard, imagine how people could live. Every supplier, he makes a new charger with a new port. So the USB port is a standard, and usually these standards are registered with ISO. So ISO is like, I'm an international standard. So please register your standard with me so everyone uses it. And so this is where ISO became more powerful, of course. But it has something else also. ISO has something that is related to quality management system. Now, talking about ports, USB connections, pipe fittings, we understand that these people register with ISO, but with quality management system, it's not straightforward. It is much more complicated. And because you are talking about much more complicated parts, quality management system, many different organizations developed new quality management system that is not ISO based. Okay, it is like a competition with ISO, or they can prove that ISO is very rigid because it wants to keep all organizations with the same quality management system, and that is not possible. So this is where many organizations they start competing with ISO 9001 2015. So okay, so we know ISO. What does it mean? It says here 9001. You're going to find on the internet something called 9000. 9000 ISO 9000 are the standards and the definitions. So ISO 9000s are standards, and sorry, they are the definitions. The definition, which means that if I use something called risk in ISO 9001, what do I mean by risk? Risk means anything that is that could suffer the organization, whatever. Just a definition. So ISO 9000 is our definitions. ISO 9001 is the management system. It is the management system. Okay. What is the version of that quality management system? It is 2015. Why? Because there was something called 2000, and after 8 years, they made a new updated version in 2008, and after 7 years they made a new one 2015. Okay, so we are going to study together 2015. So we are not going to study the earlier ones. I did this one time with the students. It was very confusing. What is in my head, old times and new times, the old version and the new version, I can easily relate, but for the students to first time to see ISO, it was very confusing. So I'm going to teach only the new one. So that is ISO 9001 2015. Now, when I said 9000, I said that is quality management system. Sorry, 9001. So 9001 relates to QMS. What do I mean by that? There's something called 14,000, depending on which year it was there. But ISO 14,000 are related to environment issues. I just finished one of the master projects. It dealt with ISO 17,025, which are related to labs and forensic labs. Okay, so that was a very beautiful experience for me because I did not deal with that before. We just finished. It was a 2-year master project. I dealt with something else, developed a system. It is called 10,015. It is a training management system. And if you want to know which organization in Bahrain, I did that for them. It is Ernst & Young. EY is a very, very popular organization in the world, and we did that with them, alhamdulillah. Okay, so that is what, just giving you an example of what is ISO 9000 2015. Okay, so we are going to cover the ISO 9001, which is the quality management system of the version 2015. Well, if you look at it, there are a lot of details that is in that standard. Okay, so the standard, I'm going to go through it later, but the standard has a table of content that you should satisfy within the organization. So the standard tells that I want to make sure that this organization has an objective, has a goal, has a strategic plan. I want to make sure that this organization undergo the risk management system. I want to make sure that this organization has processes very clear, processes for hiring, processes for purchasing, and so on. So there's a table of content that we need to reflect within the ISO organization. Now, what you see here, the content, all what you see here is the added value. Is the added value from the 2015 version. So what you can see here, mostly, most of them, or partially some of them, the definition was changed. These are the added values that had been added to 2015. So most of this was not there at the 2008 version. Okay, and this is where we are going to explain this. For you you will not feel the difference, but for me, like, I feel the difference because I know that these were not there when I worked with Ernst & Young or DTEB or Jahrami, JCON. When I worked with them developing the quality management system, we did not have these all in place. These were not applicable. Okay, so these are the new stuff here. What are they? We're going to explain them. No worries. You see, high level structure. So we are going to explain things in more details. Wahda, step by step, I'm going to do it. So again, as part of ISO management system, the most important thing that we need to look at, and now we started going higher in our thinking, if I would say. In what sense? What I'm trying to say is that the ISO has a lot of details dealing with what should be done inside the organization. How is purchasing done? How is hiring done? How is the change is done? How to design a system? You need a clear process for that. Everything has a certain a process that is written with certain forms that are defined. We already saw this with the process approach. So everything's there, but is that the only thing important? So ISO added that, well, we need to look at a higher level, structure. Why? Because ISO discovered that organizations could have everything in place, but they cannot succeed because they don't have this high level vision. And high level vision, what do we mean by high level vision? It is something that we are going to take in a while, something called the context of the organization, the suppliers. We are going to see this internal parties. They call them different. They call them parties, and so on. So there are high level structure and high level vision of ISO that we need to consider. Now, these are all the standards that are related in ISO. Okay, so if you work in any government organization in Bahrain, any organization, government organization in Bahrain, they are ISO 9001 2015 certified. They have the certification of ISO. The people who are working ISO are still very few in Bahrain. So if you become ISO certified, you will have an opportunity to get a job within the government organizations. Okay, so let's continue. So ISO 9001 2015, what does it has? What does it have? Let's see it one by one. So the first one is saying that the scope of this ISO 9001 is quality management system. So it just defines what is the scope of this. So it's just few lines, 2-3 lines. Number 2 is the references. What do we mean by risk? What do we mean by QMS? What do we mean by process? What do we mean? It's something like references. Of course, all of these references are already stated in ISO 9000, but ISO 9000 has hundreds of definitions. What you want to use in your document maybe only 10 or 15. So you want to put only those 10 or 15 definitions. Okay, so actually this is the definitions. So I confused you. Terms and definitions are number 3. Number 2 are the references. References, that mean you refer back to ISO 9000. You said, I have a reference that I refer back to. It is ISO 9000. Maybe there are other references you also like to refer back to. Okay, so that could be, that is the references. I would explain the references again. So ISO normative references, it could be ISO 9000. It could be, for example, if I'm working at Ministry of Works, they have some standards as well that are related to roads. For example, the road, when you use the material has a certain standard. For causeways, Jusur, the bridges, there are certain standards as well to the type of the material, to the dimensions, many things. Traffic lights, when you want to put a traffic light in a certain place, certain standards. So here you put the references which are related. For example, if I'm working at Ministry of Works, that are related to Ministry of Works and ISO 9000. So the first one is just the scope of this ISO. The second one is are the references. The third one are the definitions, where you take the definitions, you take them from ISO 9000. So the first 3 are usually straightforward stuff that no one worries about a lot, and because the real ISO standards start from where? Starts from number 4. Now, just to have a look up on all of those standards, we need to understand the structure. We need to understand the hierarchy, the skeleton, if I would say, the skeleton of this of the standard. When I say skeleton, that means when we talk about a human, you have skull, you have hands. Hands, that means a certain thing to do. The head is the thinking. The legs are for moving or walking. So what I'm trying to say here, that each one of those are of a certain aim. And just to make it very clear, the context of the organization. So the context of the organization puts your organization in a certain place where you're saying that now I am talking about my organization. What are the expectations of my organization? What I am producing? Am I producing a product or I'm providing a service? Whom I'm dealing with? Are there any competitors around me? Do I have a market or I don't have a market? Who are the people that I'm going to deal with, interested parties in future? Are there expectations from legal authority that I need to satisfy? So here you're looking at the context of the organization, my goal, and what should I do? And you're looking at the people around you so that you have a clear place of your organization within other organizations. Yani, there's a new university called, for example, the American University, and another university on the way called the Euro University in Bahrain. And there are third and fourth also coming on the way. And these new universities, when they come on and open in Bahrain, So they need to say that what is my context of my organization within Bahrain with other organization. Do I have any risk in opening, because there are many universities in Bahrain? Is there some expectations from the Quality Assurance Authority, هيئة الجودة? Is there any expectation, legal expectations from the Higher Education Council, which authorizes, which legalizes the legal authority for universities? If there are expectations, I need to put this so that I have a very clear context. Is there, do I have any competitors in Bahrain? Of course. Okay, what I'm going to do with those competitors? So what is my scope? What makes me different also from others? Yes, and so here the context of the organization, you know, where is your organization sitting within all the other organizations? Now, what is your goal? Who is the management? What are the roles and responsibilities within the organizations? Who is the board of director? How many committees do you have? So here you're organizing your place here, your leadership, and what are your goals in your future. Now, when you put your goals, you need to plan. You need to put a plan, a strategic plan. Within first year, I want to get 700 students for my new university. Within 2 years, I want to get to 1,500 students. So you're planning. Of course, when you plan, you put a strategic plan, you put details of the goals. So when you put here goals, part of the quality of policy, here you need the quality objectives, which are the details of the goals. You need to put details. For example, quality policy or a goal that you want to be #1 university in Bahrain. So you put quality objectives to the details of what do you mean by #1 in Bahrain. So what you're going to do. So you're going to hire the professors of the highest caliber, for example, who already are very strong in teaching or research. So for example, this is what you're going to do. You're going to have students from Bahrain and outside Bahrain, international students. You're going to have the latest labs preparation of all kind in Bahrain. So if you're going to open a biological lab for biochemistry, for example, is going to be better مثلا than University of Bahrain مثلا. So here they're putting objectives. Well, we are going to also work hand in hand with all organizations. يعني مثلا the student is going to study 2 years in chemical engineering department, and he's going to study another 2 years within GPIC or BOPCO. So 2 years and 2 years. And this model, what I'm saying here, this model, it is applicable in Holland and some parts of Holland, and in US, again, some parts of US, but it's becoming very popular, or popular, not very popular. And in Germany, for example, so they have this 2 years. And so for example, so these are quality objectives. They are details of the goals, details of the goals. So they are planning, they're putting a strategic planning. Now, when you do your plan, you need to put resources. Resources, that means money. Now I'm within support. So you need a support. You need money, you need people, you need faculty members, you need administration, you need a president, a vice president, deans. What are the competences of these deans? And how they're going to be communicating with each other? What documents I need as a support? Because I need to know how to open a university, how the university will operate, how to hire people. I need documents to tell me from the Higher Education Council how to do all these. Now I have the resources, money, I have the faculty members, I have the competence, I have all the documentation. The next step is the operation. How to market and to ask for students to come to the university. How do I admit students? How do I teach students? How do I make exams? How do I hire faculty members? How do I purchase an equipment for a lab? So all these are operations. So this is what I'm talking about, the operations. So you need an operation, detailed operation for everything happening within the organization, everything that is happening within the organization. Number 9, after you do all this, and now you're imagining that you already started operating and doing your work, you're hiring faculty members, you have students, 700 students in your first year. You need now to measure, analyze, and evaluate. How are those students operating? Did I achieve 700 students or only achieve 600 students? Are the students, 700 students, are good students, or most of those students, like for example, I have seen in one of the universities that most of the students are under 75%. They got less than 75% in the school. So you're talking about not most of the students, yani 90% of the students, 95% of the students, their marks in the in school was between 65 and 75. Is this acceptable? Is it good? Does that reflect something good about my university or not? Of course, the reason for that, because most of the dropovers from the University of Bahrain, either they are not accepted because they are less than 70, or they drop off because they could not manage to continue at University of Bahrain. So where do they go? They go to private universities, and the private universities, they have them as a market. I mean, they're the one who can collect them and give them certificates. I don't mean these students are bad, huh? I don't mean that these students are bad. It's just that they are not fit to the place that they are sitting in. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He created man and woman, He created mankind, He created us. Everyone is going to be a supporter for the other. Okay, everyone is a supporter for the other. ورفعنا بعضكم فوق بعض ليتخذ بعضكم بعضا سخرية. سخرية, that means everyone is مسخر, and is going to help an assistant, a supporter to the other. So definitely they should have a right job that they can do that I cannot do as a professor. And I can do something that they cannot do, and everyone, of course, completes the other. So what I'm trying to say, that they did not find the right place to study, and that is the problem. That's another story. Keep it aside, but we are working at the national level in Bahrain to solve this. I have been working with many people, and hopefully within the coming years, things will become better for all Bahrainis and non-Bahrainis as well. And it's something for everyone living in Bahrain. So the performance evaluation, I'm looking at the performance. I got 700 students. Are they good or not good? And then I'm going to audit. Of course, audit, that means I want to make sure that every worker or every employee is doing his job correctly. Okay, a management review, I come at the end of the year and I sit as management, top management. Did we do the good job or we didn't do a good job? So they have a checklist. So there is a checklist that we may have a look at it, because we cannot study all ISO, everything. We are just taking an overall view. I always say overall view, then I give more than what is needed, but I will try my best. After you come at the management review, by the end of the year, you measure and evaluate, and you discover that the students that you have obtained are not to the level. Okay, how can you improve? What you're going to do to improve? So this is the part of improvement. So you see that how it is completing, these standards are completing, are very important. These standards says what? That if you want to be ISO certified, any organization wants to be ISO certified, you need to have very clear processes for all these standards. So if you don't have a clear standard for operation, everything is written very clearly, documented, that means you will not be certified. If you don't have enough support, human resources or financial resources, or you don't have a definition of what do you want, who do you want? For example, you say, I want a professor. Okay, professor, what do you mean? 5 years experience or 10 years experience? Research, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 papers per year. What do you mean by professor? A good teaching, or you don't care about his teaching? So you need to define. So the ISO certification says that you will not get certified if you don't have a clear definition of what support do you need, of what competence do you need. ISO certification, for example, says that if you don't sit and evaluate what is your performance every 3 or 4 months, and by the end of the year you have a clear checklist to see if you're achieving your goals. If you don't do this, you will not be ISO certified. If you don't have improvement actions every year to improve your system, your whole system, to achieve your goals, you will not be certified. If you don't have clear leadership, you will not be certified. So you understand, now you're getting some idea that the certification requires that you need to satisfy all the details of all the parts of the ISO standards. Now, looking at the ISO standards again, this is explaining again what I have explained. So I have 2 slides and then I will stop for today. So you have 2 slides now. I'm going to explain them again. What do I mean? Terms and definitions are just definitions. For, you see here, for, which is the context of the organization, and the context of the organization, that means how I am sitting within other organizations, which means enterprise excellence. In other words, creating an enterprise-wide business management system. Okay, I hope you got it. It means that as a business, will I do well or not? You will know if you're going to do well or not if you know your context of their organization. Okay, so you know you will do well in business if you know your context of organization. You know your competitors, you know the suppliers, you know the legal framework, you know all what is around you. So again, I'm explaining it again, but I'm putting it in words here. Number 5, leadership. Okay, so after I know my position, if I'm going to do a good business, the next thing is that I start create my vision, what I'm trying to achieve in 10 years or 5 years. What is my mission? I'm going to accept students. However, I'm going to accept students of high caliber of over 85% in the fields of chemistry and biology. مثلا, I'm just talking يعني. Values. What are the values of your organization? What are the roles and responsibilities of the leadership in this sense? So what you're trying to say here, you're going to look at your leadership, your mission, your goals. So the first part, I know that if I'm going to succeed in my business. The second part, I want to look at the leadership in my business. After I know that I'm going to be succeeding in my business and I have a clear leadership, I'm going to plan. So the leadership is going to plan. Now, planning means what? Means objectives, means goals, and means that how to maintain that I achieve my goals, or I'm going to change my goals if I need to. Okay, so I'm planning. So that is part of 6. I'm doing some kind of planning. Okay, after you plan. Okay, after you plan again. So I have a business. The leadership, we have clear vision, clear goals, clear values. I planned. I put objectives. And after I put the objectives, I need to see what are the responsibility of the people who are going to work with me to maintain this objective, which are the human resources and financial resources and the competence of the people who are going to be working with me and how they are going to communicate with each other. So the responsibility of the people. So we call this the outcome-based risk and reward. Next is the process-based organization. That means I need to put the details of everything, how to hire people, how to admit students, how the students will learn in the class, how the registration process is done, and so on. So I need to put a clear process for everything within the organization. And of course, we now imagine that we already started, and after we started, all our people are working very clearly. We have students. I need to evaluate my performance. Did I achieve my goals or not? I wanted 700 students as a metric. Did I achieve 700 students or not? And then, of course, if I did not achieve, I need to improve. I need to improve, which is part of the maintenance. Maintenance, and we'll see on I'm improving myself as the organization. Next, inshallah, week, we are going to start with the context of the organization. So I explained everything now. So I will start explaining here now. What do I mean by context of organization? What do I mean by leadership? What do I mean by planning? I already explained, I know, but it's much more deeper than what we expect. Okay, so I'm going to start explaining what do I mean by the context of organization. Again, many of those terminologies you already know because we have taken them, but I need to go again and just to ensure that you understand them. يعطيكم العافية. Any questions? Any questions?
دكتور يعني هو بيكون نفس إن هم يقدمون على إنهم يكونوا معتمدين من الآيزو وبعدين بيكونوا يقيمونهم الآيزو كذي يعني.
مرة ثانية ما فهمت سؤالك.
يعني الحين لما مثلا هاي الجامعة الجديدة بدي تفتح في البحرين، فهي تقدم على إن هي تكون معتمدة من الآيزو، فمثلا يعطونهم مثل فورمة يملونها بهاي الأشياء أو إنه تقييمها.
Yes, they give them a form, but they don't call it a form, they call it a manual. لأن تكون تقريبا بتكون 100 صفحة أو أكثر. Okay, يعني وايد حكي لأنه. So they fill in a full manual where they need to get this certification. It's not required by, but it is a good. It's a good tool for quality management system. Number one. Number two, it is a good tool for marketing. When you say that I'm ISO certified, it just gives you gives you an added value of marketing, that people know that you are a good organization. You do things very organized. Everything is in place. That is where ISO adds a real value. It's not just a marketing value, but it also adds as a real value. Now, how do people fill quality manuals? Most of the organizations, they have a difficulty to fill this manual. So what do? They call a person who is a consultant to help them fill this quality manual, how to satisfy all of these details. And myself, I was a consultant. So my job was with the organization is to fill this quality manual. And then I call the ISO people. I tell them, this organization is ready to get the certificate. Please come to us. And then they come and they get the certificate and so on. يعني هاي هو. Okay, great. I already passed my time. يعطيكم العافية. Thank you very much and see you.